Welcome to another Watertrek 360. Today we're going to be looking at the iPhone 13 Pro and how it does in an underwater environment, specifically using the Divevolk SeaTouch 4 underwater housing for smartphones. Let's see what it looks like. I recently got the new iPhone 13 Pro and I really wanted to see how the LiDAR scanning would do underwater. I purchased a dive housing for it. Do check out those reviews I did on the Divevolk SeaTouch 4 Max, which I used to make this video. If you're in the market, it may help your decision whether to purchase it. Full disclosure, there's about 4 minutes in the middle of this video with all the ugly technical stuff. It's important, so you may want to revisit it a couple times. So here's my first experience with the iPhone 13 Pro as an underwater camera. I'll call it the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful. Hang in there for the beautiful, it's worth it. I only tested 4 features: photo, SLO-MO, cinematic, and standard videos, partly because I had some issues with the housing's touch membrane, but also because portrait and pano modes I would not likely use, and the time-lapse effect I can create in post-production. I only did a few takes with cinematic mode due to its background blur. I would only use it likely with a large subject like a whale shark and some divers to shift between. It turns out, actually, only doing a few cinematic clips was a blessing. So, the good. Upgrades. In the 13 Pro, they added the A15 Bionic chip processor to increase speed and the LiDAR scanner to help in low light conditions with faster autofocus and better contrasted images in darker conditions. 13 Pro standard lens is a 26mm equivalent. It has a little faster aperture of 1.5 as opposed to 1.6, as a larger sensor, except for the iPhone 12 Pro Max. The ultra-wide lens is now a 13mm equivalent with a wider f.18 aperture. The telephoto lens increased to 3x. It's a 78mm equivalent. The aperture, though, is a step back to an f2.8 compared to the 12 Pro's f2.0. The 13 Pro has a new automatic macro mode enabling quick focusing on extreme close-ups. This switches to the ultra-wide camera when a close-up subject is detected. Since it is automatic, you can't control when that happens. You can add recording in Apple's ProRAW format DNG for more control in making color and white balance adjustments post-production. This adds roughly 25 meg per file. It has ProRes, Apple's professional video format. However, 4K recording is only available for devices of 256 gig or greater. ProRes at 180p is available for 128 gig models. ProRes also increases your storage needs. The battery has also been beefed up, reportedly to a 3095 milliamp hour. Frankly, I've never had any issues with the battery life. That said, I still turn off Wi-Fi, put it in airplane mode. I didn't use low power mode, but I may do that if I see issues in the future, especially with 4K at 60 frames per second. As I mentioned, I am mostly into video, so my limited photo shots here are mediocre at best from an artistic standpoint, but the point of my dive was to test the housing. That had some responsiveness issues, so many of the fish that you were supposed to see were gone by the time I captured the image. And now the bad. All this new speed and capability brings bigger files. As you will see in this little scrolling bar, it goes up quickly. 4K at 60 FPS is more than double 4K at 30. As an example, this SLO-MO was shot at 120 FPS to hedge on doubling storage needs. Monitor your iPhone storage and back up to the iCloud often. Once you're done, transferring all this larger data can be a lengthy process since iPhone 13 still hasn't moved past the Lightning cable. I use AirDrop for almost all my files as much as I can, except in places with poor Wi-Fi. There I use a direct flash drive attached right to the phone. This too, though, has a shortcoming. It doesn't work with cinematic video. And now the big ugly. With all the hype over cinematic mode, it only allows 1080p resolution at 30 FPS. So, at this juncture, no 4K at higher FPS of 60 or 30. Additionally, the workflow for exporting these cinematic files is painful. If you do all your editing on your phone, this might not be a problem for you, but if you edit on your computer, it is. Once your cinematic video is done, you must open it in Photos on your phone. Verify under Media Types folder that it processed in cinematic mode to ensure it captured the correct codec. If not, open the video and hit Process. If you do editing on your computer, you only have really two options to transfer it off the phone. You can airdrop it to your computer, but that too has a mini workflow. It's critical before doing the export share. You click on the options link for sharing first. Select all photos data as on, click done, then you can send it to airdrop. Once in your download folder, you should see several files. Select the one that has simply the name and .mov without any additional letters in it. Do a get info on the file and validate the codec has dish timed metadata in it. If not, then you don't have a cinematic file. I strongly suggest you do not delete your cinematic videos from iPhone unless you can see this codec in the downloaded files, even if you're trying to save space. If you mistakenly delete your cinematic video, even if you see it sitting up in iCloud Photos, you're sunk. iCloud Photos is not the same app as what's on your computer or on your phone. It cannot do cinematic processing at this time. If you import your video back onto your iPhone and then try to process it in Photos, you will find the codec is gone and it's just a blurry HDR. You can also transfer files directly into Final Cut Pro. Attach the iPhone to your computer. Once you are in FCPX, go to Import Media, go to your phone, Photos, and the video you want. Again, make sure you have processed it first in Photos on your phone. You can then import directly into FCPX. Could take a little longer for larger files, so be patient. Once the video is into your Final Cut Pro timeline, just like other 4K videos, you need to use the HDR tools from the Effect menu. Drag it onto the clip. Change the codec for Rec.709 SDR from HDR to HLG. Scroll down, you'll find a checkbox for cinematic, click on it, and then you can edit. One last item before we get to the beautiful. Here are my settings. I'm not saying this is what you need. I was simply trying to make the most out of what the camera offered since I have 256 gig of storage. To hedge larger file issues, I did 4K at 30 FPS, SLO-MO at 120 FPS, and left Pro RAW off. If you're doing cave diving or night diving, you might want to set Auto FPS to off in order to get the default 24 FPS. For the housing, I had to set Assistive Touch on, Raise to Wake on, and Auto Brightness off. And now the beautiful. Regardless of the challenges I described previously, I really am impressed with the iPhone 13 Pro. It was pretty easy to use. I know I bored you with the heavy technical portion, so my commentary for the rest of this video is about what I experienced. Enjoy the visuals. Obviously, cloudy water impacts visibility, but I liked how nice and crisp these images are. The field of view is a bit closer than I anticipated, and next time I might just zoom out to a 0.5x on the video and see how that looks. A wider field of view may have allowed me to see this guy a little sooner, a nice 3.5 foot barracuda surveying his territory. I normally don't use sound underwater, but the microphone worked just fine. This wreck happens to be a site called Hog Heaven. I will do a more detailed video on this wreck in particular, but do go out and look at the wreck videos already on Watertrek 360 channel. I didn't intend this video to be a comparison with the GoPro Hero, but I had the footage and it's always nice to see the difference. The Hero focal length was wider, which is why it looks farther away. On Rex, I normally like to shoot super wide so you get a broader view. I can then always crop that later if I want to. This clip shows such a difference. I noticed that focal changes on the iPhone took some time to adjust, moving from a close-up object to the next object, as you see here. In general, I liked how the colors came out. In this last comparison clip, the diver's wetsuit has some pop. It looked great. Well, I hope you found that video informative. I know I spent a lot of time on the cinematic mode and its challenges, but as such a highly touted feature of the iPhone 13, those challenges were a bit disappointing. The iPhone itself has proved its merit and worked its way into my camera bag for certain times and places. That said, my biggest challenge now is to find a dive housing that I trust. If I lose my GoPro, it sucks. If I lose my iPhone on vacation, I'm crushed. If you enjoyed this video, do check out some of our others on the Watertrek 360 channel, as well as look for pending videos not only on the wreck that we just dove, but on upcoming trials with the iPhone and the Divevolk housing as well. And as always, until next time, go explore, get wet!